This is For the Creators. Hey, welcome back to For the Creators, where we explore the minds behind the things we love. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Nile, and today we sit down with Alex Manzi of the Dreamer's Disease podcast. Alex is a podcaster and is also building a life coaching platform, and is all about uplifting people. We talk Alex's journey from being the social media manager at BBC One Extra to becoming a podcaster and building a life coaching business. Alex's energy is purely positive, and this is a really powerful conversation that everyone can get something from. If you like this, you will also love Alex's podcast, The Dreamer's Disease, where he interviews inspirational people and finds out their stories. He's also done live shows, so he's got one with Megan Roxanne, who is the founder of The Good Quote, which has over 15 million followers on Instagram. And he also has another live show this week with blogger, author and Twitter queen, The Slumflower. You can grab tickets on the Dreamer's Disease website, which is thedreamersdisease.co.uk/tickets. That's thedreamersdisease.co.uk/tickets. We'll be there, so definitely come down and support. I'm sure you'll leave inspired and uplifted, like you will from this episode. So without further ado, please enjoy our sit down with Alex Manzi of The Dreamer's Disease. Yeah, welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming down, man.
Well, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So I was put in touch with you via one of our guests, which was Stanza, True Tiger. And like I said, in that episode, he is what I call a cultural influencer.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes and just in life, he's kind of connecting the dots behind the scene, and it looks like he's done it again. Yeah. Because after discovering you, because he said, "Oh, my friend Alex will really like what you're doing."
Yeah.
He's on a similar wave, and when I checked out, I was like, Alex is on the similar wave, not only with the podcast, but also just in life in general.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're doing, your mindset, the kind of transitions that you're going through in your career. And I was like, that was a really, really good suggestion for him to make. So I want to talk about, obviously, podcasts, but I want to speak about your career at One Extra, and also what's happening in the future for you with life coaching and how you got to that point. So I mean, that's a lot to unravel. We'll probably jump back and forth, but can you tell me, or tell the listeners, a bit about yourself and how you started, I guess?
So I'm Alex, as you said. I've got a week left at One Extra.
A week?
Yeah, which is, as of recording anyway, so that's scary as hell. And I've got my own podcast called Dreamer's Disease, which is where I put out a lot of the content in terms of interviews and little mini episodes. I also make my own content on Instagram, which is all kind of about mindset and positivity, and just trying to spread that message and share it as much as I can, because I feel like our generation don't get enough of it, and I think we suffer a lot by not having it. So I wanted to create a platform where people could come to it for inspiration, for motivation, for just that little bit of positivity or whatever it may be. So in terms of what you're talking about in terms of transition, like I said, I've got a week left at One Extra, and I've taken the decision after a lot of thinking about it to, first of all, go freelance, because I do social media, and I have a lot of knowledge and experience now, having been at the BBC for 4.5 years with One Extra. Yeah. So I've got a lot of experience in terms of youth culture and content and what works and what doesn't, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to take the freelance jump to tide me over kind of financially, while I build up the business around Dreamer's Disease, which I said is going to turn into a coaching business. And not just in a very direct way, it'd be various ways. It's all kind of a plan at the minute, and I need to start executing, but
well, you already are.
Yeah, eventually it will be workshops and programs and talks and coaching sessions and group sessions and it will probably be digital based, and just a real kind of, hopefully, a hub where people can come to for that, betterment coaching, as I'm calling it. And it's all about, for me, it's all about that journey of becoming your best self, and how you get there, but the whole point of it is that it's not a destination that you reach, really. It is a journey, and I've gone on that whole journey, and I'm kind of at the tail end of it and kind of riding the high wave of it at the minute, but there's still more to come. So it's like being able to stay consistent with that and have that kind of self-awareness of where you're at and your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions and the things that, you know, piss you off and the things that make you feel good, and trying to balance it all and just understanding everything. And it's just trying to, I guess, show people and help people how to have that mindset. And I've kind of had to do it all myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's kind of utilizing everything that I've been through and trying to give as much as I can to other people, because other people go through it.
Of course. And I think it's really important work in terms of, like you said, developing that platform so people like us, or like that are from where we're from, can relate, because there are obviously loads of motivational platforms and things like that. But I do believe that almost like the more niche it is, or the more relatable it is,
exactly,
the better, because you're more likely going to listen to advice from someone who's at arm's length than, I don't know, someone who's maybe not from the same generation as you or the same country and things like that. Although it's probably going to be the same content, but you're more inclined to have someone to listen in.
Yeah, exactly. It's who you relate to. And it's like, part of the reason I started the podcast is because I started to read a lot of books and started listening to a lot more podcasts. And what I realized was a lot of the podcasts I was listening to was like Gary Vee, Lewis Howes, you know, Tim Ferriss. And I'm like, geez, like these are all amazing, but you know, they're interviewing like these big names and these big stars, and they're all American. And I'm like, I can relate to it in a certain way, but it feels so far away from where I am and where I live. Like, I want to find a podcast that does actually speak to people who I can relate to and feel like they're in touching distance.
Yes.
I couldn't find one.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna set, because I know enough people through work, you know, naturally, in the music world and everything, and friends and whatever it is. So I was like, right, I'm just gonna set up this podcast and roll with it. And I came up with like the name, the idea, everything.
How did the name come to you?
So the name, so I've actually probably still got the note on my phone. When I first came up with the idea of the podcast, I literally had everything. I had like the idea, like everything in place. Hadn't bought the equipment yet. But the first thing I wanted to get was the name, so I could get the branding, because my background's advertising, marketing, and social media. So the branding's important.
Exactly. So you're already thinking, how does it look on Instagram?
Yeah. Or how does the name pop? Like, what's the visuals gonna look like?
Yeah.
How's it gonna get people's attention? So I started writing down not names, like words, like keywords. So like happiness, inspiration, motivation, dreaming, dreams, and when I wrote down dreams and dreaming, Dreamer's Disease came into my head because it's the name of Stormzy's EP that he put out before his album.
Oh.
And it just came into my head and it stuck. And I kept writing and writing. This is over like a course of like a few days. It wasn't in one session. I kept writing things down as they popped into my head. But I kept coming back to Dreamer's Disease because I felt like it summed up exactly, in 2 words, it summed up exactly what I was trying to get across with the podcast. Yeah. And I was like, I have to roll with it. Like, it's not going away. I can't get it out of my head. Yeah.
That's how you know when it's the one.
And then as soon as I was like, okay, I like it, I knew exactly what the logo was going to look like. It was going to be a cloud, a thinking cloud bubble thing. And then the DD in the middle. And then I just played around on Photoshop and made the logo, and basically had the logo in the name before I had like the equipment or any guests or like a format for the interviews or anything like that. But that's kind of how I landed on it.
That's amazing, man. Yeah. That's amazing. And what I like about it as well, and as you're explaining it, is having a dream is a gift and a curse. Yeah. And I suppose, obviously, the podcast is the start of a bit of an antidote to that. Yeah, and obviously what you're building with the life coaching business and the platform is going to be a bigger version of the solution to having the dream disease, I suppose. Because it is something, like, obviously, I'm a dreamer. Yeah. A massive dreamer. And as soon as you have that aha moment and that vision and that plan, it's almost like a weight on your shoulder, because, you know, you have it, you have to see it through, because it's a vision. I can see it. Like, I can see all these ideas. I can see what I need to do to make it happen. Yeah. And it's almost like you put that weight on yourself to make it through. So it is a disease in that sense, because it's something that it's almost like you catch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think you've started some really important work there.
Thank you. But you know, I think there's a flip side to it as well. I think what you said is nailed on, and this is the other reason why I like Dreamer's disease, because to me there's two flips to it. So the thing that you've just described is like being addicted to the dream and trying to see it through, which is, from what I could understand, Stormzy's interpretation of the two words. But on the flip side, and I say this all the time, it's the disease of dreaming that stops us from living out our dreams and our lives in a happy way, because we're too busy dreaming about them and not taking action. So it sits in a very nice balance of like, you're either someone who does chase your dreams and really, take the leap of faith or take the chance, or you're someone who doesn't, and you dream about it and you kill yourself and you beat yourself up because you haven't taken the action.
That's a very good point.
My thing is trying to slot somewhere in between the two to like show people like actually it is possible, by hearing these other people's stories who seemingly are doing incredible things, but they had to start somewhere and their journey wasn't easy. It's not like they woke up one morning and they had, whatever business or however many followers or whatever influence on, a certain crowd of people. They had to work for it. And that's the whole point, is like, if you want to do something, do it, take the action, take that first step, but know that the journey is going to be long and it's going to be far and it's going to be tough. But if you really, really want to show yourself that you can do it, and you want to keep dreaming about it, go out and do it, no matter what, because you'll feel so much better for having done it and tried and, possibly failed or seen success, or whatever you determine as success or happiness or whatever. But you'll feel so much more fulfilled inside for having done it. And that's the whole thing. It's like,
absolutely, man. I always say to people, just take the first step, because I think, and approaching it from that side where you are, dreaming about it, but you're not doing anything. You get addicted to the dream. I think if you think like that, you start to get addicted to the plan of action without actually doing it. So it's like, I need to do A, to do B, to do C. But in order to do A, I'm going to have to do all these in order to. It's like, it needs to be the right weather, I need to be in the right location, etc., etc. But by taking the first step, it informs itself.
Yeah, exactly.
You literally just need to dive in, like you did with the podcast. I'm sure your journey is similar to ours in that, you buy the equipment and you just get started, and then you can have all the plans in the world, but it starts to inform itself. Can we go back to how you started the podcast?
How?
Yeah. So you had the Dreamer's disease idea. You've got the logo and all of that. What did you do? And how long ago was that?
So this was, I came up with the idea of doing a podcast and the name and the brand we're in 2018, it was the end of 2016. In January of that year, tell a lie. In the back end of that year, before Christmas, I bought the equipment. And then I think it was in January of that year I started recording, and then I didn't put the first episode out until April that year, so 2017.
Yeah.
And it was just a process of like, cool, I've bought the equipment, so now I've committed.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I have to do it. So I just hit up a few people. Like, first of all, they were like close friends, in the sense of like, I didn't feel like it'd be an issue like reaching out to them and be like, hey, should we sit down and record something, and I want to hear your story. There were people I knew well enough to be able to do that. So that was the first step, was like, who am I going to reach out to? And I still got the original list of names and everything on my phone of like, all of the names I wrote down of people I wanted to interview. And then I ordered them in like, okay, cool. Who's the most approachable for the first few episodes? So I wanted like an entry point for people. So the first few episodes are like my boy BJ, who's he's 21, he might even be 22 now. He's like mad, like just smart kids, like entrepreneur, he's got like 2-3 businesses. He's like just mad, and he's been working for like 8 years because he started when he was 15. So he's just killing it. And then episode 2 was with Courtney's a photographer. Episode 3 was with I can't remember, but like it was people who were like either behind the scenes in music, working at labels, photographers, artist managers, like people like that I knew well enough. And then once I got to that point, I was like, right, I'm gonna start reaching out to more people who are like, maybe slightly higher up or slightly more well known, or however you want to put it, to kind of hear their stories, and then I just get building. And that's what I do. I continue just build and look for like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next stage? Who's the next type of person? And initially I had like 3 phases. So phase 1 was like those people who I kind of knew well enough to kind of reach out to. Phase 2 was like personalities, or, you know, people who have a following or an awareness of them.
Yeah.
Or an audience, or however you want to look at it. And phase 3, which I haven't really got to yet, but I will do later down the line, is like big business owners. It's like speaking to like the head of, I don't know, like Headspace, like had a Headspace set up their business and hear their story and their journey.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
They're based in Bethnal Green as well, aren't they?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
no, they're LA is where they're based, but I'm not sure if they're...
Because the main guy's from over here, isn't he? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, they're English, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like just, you know, those kind of people, and trying to look at things from that way as well. Because obviously
Absolutely.
what they do is quite, you know, intertwined to everything.
Oh, completely,
you know, so.
man. Completely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that episode.
Yeah. It will happen one day.
No, it definitely will. It definitely will. That sounds really similar to the approach that we had, actually. And just going back to the point of the process kind of informing itself. Like you said, you had your initial list.
Yeah.
And you did it, right? And then it kind of started to inform itself.
Yeah.
A bit after that.
Yeah, it starts to shape itself, and you know, even the type of guest that I've started to get on has changed over that time, and the way that I've structured the interviews has changed over that time, and the way that I name the episodes has changed over that time. So it's all kind of, like you said, it does inform itself, and it starts to become a clearer picture. But if you don't start doing it, you never find that way in the first place.
Exactly. And you just passed 50 episodes.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
I checked out your 50th episode, so I kind of know your
research.
your whole backstory. Yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. And you had I forget his name, but he's from the Wrinkle.
Anton.
Anton, that's it. Yeah, Anton from because I stumbled on his podcast as well.
Oh, really?
Because I was looking at other podcasts in the space that aren't doing the same thing, but are on the same vibe.
Yeah.
In terms of like uplifting people. That's essentially what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I saw his one. It was like kind of like Northerners, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like you've got Liverpool accent, like interviewing Mike Lowry and people like that, and it was all like, I don't know, it just sounded mad different to me. But I was like, it's all good, man. Like, because there's more than enough space.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, I've listened to all the same podcasts that you do. I'm a massive Tim Ferriss fan.
Yeah.
And I felt the same. Like my favorite episodes with Tim Ferriss, although I love tech and business and stuff, were the ones where he interviews like Jamie Foxx and some of the people in entertainment. And I was like, I want more of that. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we set out to do. And it sounds like you did as well. What other podcasts? What's on your like must listen to?
So I still listen to Lewis Howes a lot. That's like my definite go-to. 100%. Like that was like the biggest podcast inspiration for mine. Was even just because we're kind of similar characters in the sense that, I mean, I was never like a
NFL player,
Olympic athlete or whatever he used to be, gold medalist, but I was like a sports guy. I was like always, the football kid or whatever. And then gone through that whole process of like discovering yourself and and even just like our interview styles are quite similar. Just and it's a natural thing for me. It's not like I force that kind of conversation, and neither does he. So it was a very big inspiration for me. I listen to Gary Vee every now and then. I dip in when I want like a supercharged, like,
that's what it is. Yeah.
Sometimes I go hard for like 2 months listening to Gary Vee, and then other times I'm like, cool, right, I've listened enough. I need to just start doing stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I dip in with that. The Receipts, love the Receipts podcast.
Smashed it.
They're so good.
So good.
Literally so good.
So good.
It's actually my favourite, I think, because I spent a lot of time growing up around girls, like not in that way, but like my sister, and we had a family friends who lived up the road, and there was 3 girls, so we used to be like a little crew. So it'd be like me and 4 girls. So I'd spend a lot of time around girls having those conversations. So I've always felt comfortable, around girls and having conversations which are slightly deeper or whatever.
Yes.
And like listening to that, it's like I haven't had that for a long time since I was younger. So like listening to the Receipts just brings me back to like, this is exactly like the kind of conversations you'd have. Obviously not as probably explicit because we was younger, but just the way they talk and everything. So it's quite funny. What else is there? We just started listening to Oprah's podcast.
Yep.
Supercell Conversations. She's got a new one called
Masterclass.
Yeah. I listened to the one with The Rock and the one with, I can't remember who the other one was with now. I listened to a few football podcasts.
Which ones?
So there's one called Golazzo, which is like an Italian. Do you remember Football Italia?
Golazzo.
Yeah. So it's James Richardson, and it's basically a podcast version of Football Italia. So it's pretty cool.
Dope.
I've just been introduced to a new one called the Touchline Fracas, which is like
I've heard of it.
It's like 4 or maybe even 5 like London kids, and they just like talking about football, and it's basically like it's like the Receipts, but they talk about football and they all like shout over each other, they're like
so proper.
It's quite funny
conversation.
Well, so I'm gonna have Wrinkle. Obviously, always got to shout out Wrinkle.
Shout out to Wrinkle
because their podcast is actually really, really good.
Yep.
Sometimes I listen to some of the stuff they do, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I thought of that. What else is there? They're the main ones. Are really just flicking through. There's Halfcast.
Of course, yeah.
That's like goes without saying. Yeah, that's it. And then there's others I dip into, like How I Built This is quite interesting.
With Guy Raz.
Yeah. I really like those because it is literally like about the business.
Yeah.
Rich Roll's quite interesting.
Okay.
Do
you listen to any Gimlet Media?
No.
Like Startup or Reply All?
No.
I think you really enjoy those ones. They're more like narrative. It's like a different take on what most people perceive as podcasts are like really high end. Yeah. They're really cool.
That's cool.
Really cool ones. But yeah, Receipts really stands out to me because, like you said, it's explicit. And because they're British girls, you don't really hear a lot of that. Yeah. You more hear that kind of brashness from American women, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And having British women have that, it's like, whoa. Yeah. Which is really cool. Yeah. And they've just had their show extra. on One Extra, right?
Yeah, it's funny because when the conversation of podcasts came up, I was like, we need to get the receipts. Yeah. I was like, straight up, we need the receipts because I'm such a big fan of the show. I'm not saying I put them on inside the BBC, but I was part of that discussion and definitely put their name forward. As I got emailed by one of the bosses saying, we're looking at doing podcasts. Obviously, they know that I'm in the podcast world and doing fairly well. So they wanted my recommendation. So I sent them a list of about 10, Receipts being one of them. But I was like, these are my recommended 3. That was one of them. So I was so happy to see they got a show, and I think it's like 6 episodes. Yeah. And it'll probably be seasonal. I'm not sure how they've rolled out. I think they'll see how the first 6 go. But the first episode was like, they only released it this week, Monday, and it was like number 1 overall. Number 1 episode on iTunes overall. Like no
crazy
categorized. Right? It was number 1 on iTunes overall. That's how big and powerful their audience is. And then you combine that with a brand like One Extra, and you push it out there, and it's like,
it was pretty magical to see, man.
It is.
Because I know they're obviously they're doing more in terms of like where they are in the charts and just like general influence. Like they've got their audience on lock, which is amazing. Yeah. But then seeing that, like the collaboration with BBC One Extra, and then number 1 straight away. That's almost like, you know, when like Drake drops a new tune, it's like everyone get out of the way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, basically, brilliant, man, brilliant.
Yeah, we're so happy for them though. Yeah, so happy.
So why do you think the BBC are moving more into podcasts, but especially not because obviously they've got their own like BBC 4, Radio 4, all that kind of stuff. So they obviously know the power behind. But in terms of BBC One Extra, because obviously that's more youth culture. Yeah. Why do you feel that they've gone that direction?
I feel like it's because they've seen the trend, you know, and they've seen it for a while, but you know, within the BBC it's quite big, so there's a lot of processes to go through to get stuff signed off and the ball rolling on things. So I've been having this podcast conversation for a while inside the building, and I've said so many times that this thing should be a podcast or that should be a podcast, but we never really had a One Extra podcast feed. So we had to that had to get signed off. And with the new BBC app, which has come, which is BBC Sounds, there's now room for commissioning for podcasts. And that's a lot of it comes down to that commissioning and distribution of money or whatever. So they've obviously seen the trend. They've seen that it's becoming a part of youth culture. They've seen things like the Receipts, like Free Shots, like Halfcast, like my podcast, like, you know, whatever, doing well in that space. and they're like, we need to have a piece of it. But what's great about the BBC is they don't have to go, we need to be a piece of it and make our own thing. They can go, let's collaborate with these people, Receipts, for example. And that's, already one episode in, you've seen the madness. So
exactly. And that was so good to see, because it's not like they said, okay, we want you to collaborate, but we don't want you to be explicit. We don't want you to swear. We don't want you to be yourselves. They're like, give them the mics.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else will come out of it. Knowing, I know the next 2 sets of podcasts which are coming, and I'm really excited because 2 people I know very well, and I couldn't be happier.
Oh,
so
sick.
It's 3 amazing podcasts to start with from One Extra's perspective. So yeah, I think what they're doing it really well. And good. I think the good thing about One Extra within the BBC is because they are on that youth, culture side of things, they can push the boundaries slightly more than BBC One or Radio 4 or whatever.
They've kind of sure.
Because that's their role. That's their role within the BBC. So they can push it that little bit more. So they can have that slightly more explicit content or those, deeper conversations or whatever it is. So it's good to see.
That's good, to, really see, man. Definitely. So you spoke about this app, BBC Sound. I wasn't aware of it.
It's launched, but it hasn't officially launched, if that makes sense. It's available, but it's not like they haven't done like a massive, haven't done a massive marketing push. That's later in the year, and that's when things will really kick into gear. But yeah, not sure how much I should say.
Of course, yeah, that's fine.
Not that I know loads. That's pretty much all I know. But
well, you'll know less in a week.
Yeah, exactly. A lot less.
That's amazing, man. So, what would you determine as? Because obviously, success is something that you define. So, obviously, you've gone into the podcast 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Did you have a marker in the sand for yourself, like 50 episodes, X amount of downloads or reach, or like, do you know?
Do you know what? I think at first I did, because I used to do blogging back in the day. It was like, oh, let's get our first 100 views on a thing. Let's get our first 200, 250, 500, 1,000. So I kind of took the same approach, but what I started to realize was actually it's about maintaining that audience. So it's like, okay, it's good to be able to go from 300 to 500 to 800 to 1,000 or whatever, but it's, are you then able to keep it at 1,000 at a steady rate or whatever? And that's kind of where I'm at, is I've got to a level where it's been very consistent over the last 2-3 months. And now I'm looking, okay, what's the next thing I have to do to give it that next nudge up, to take the nudge to over 2,000 or over, or how do I get to 100,000 total downloads or whatever?
Yeah.
So it's like working that stuff out. But I'm just happy that it's consistent, and I know that if I put an episode out, it's going to get minimum X amount of listens, or in a week I'm going to get X amount of listens in total across all the episodes. So that's really powerful.
Yeah, and it's like evidence that you're hitting the nail on the head, right?
Yeah.
With an audience at least.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's billions of people on the earth, and there's probably a billion podcasts as well that
exactly.
People are listening to, and it's great that I think people, going back to like dreamer's disease, I'm definitely someone who is a big thinker, so I would tend to, maybe not so much now, but definitely early on, I would tend to always think of the biggest version of whatever it is I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So that's in numbers, in terms of reach and blah blah blah. But it's easy to stick with that. Do you know what I mean? And which kind of diminishes the journey on the way, because you're not there yet. You're not at like arbitrary numbers, like 1 million, for example.
Exactly.
You're not there yet. So it's cool where we're at, but it's not there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that can kind of hold you back sometimes. Have you gone through like challenges like that, or?
Yeah, I guess like you always worry. You're always like, oh, why isn't it growing? Why isn't it whatever? But at the end of the day, like you forget. Like I remember, getting to 1,000 overall listens, and I was gassed. I was like, oh, what, 1,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, but not like in one episode. I mean, like, well, it has happened on episodes, but I mean, 1,000 in total, like across all the episodes, like gas. And then 10,000, you're like, oh, 10,000, and then it's like 50,000. You're like, oh, I've had 50,000 total downloads, and then it's like, it's about remembering how you felt in that moment and not forgetting it. Like now that I'm pushing it in and around 80,000 total downloads. It's
Smash
like
it.
I'm looking to 100.
100, yeah.
I'm looking to 100, but I'm like, I can't forget how I felt when I got to 50. And I started the year, I was like, right, by the end of the year, I want to get to 250,000. And I was aiming super high with it, but then I kind of changed my mindset and thought, actually, let me maintain. Let me just keep putting out good quality content. Let it be organic, and just see if I can keep that consistency with it, which is what I've done. Which is why now, you know, another part of the freelance thing, like I said, is to focus more free time on the podcast and the brand around it. So it's, what can I do now with that time, you know, from September onwards to like push all of that stuff as hard as I can to grow the numbers, to grow the awareness, to get bigger guests, to whatever it is, to do more live shows, to do all of that stuff around it, to elevate, to bring more people in to the message, to the, you know what I mean? Because it's all about that message. Like everything I do, you know, like be it Instagram, podcast, I don't do it for people to be like, oh, I see your podcast is doing really well.
Exactly.
Or like, oh yeah, like, oh, your Instagram, or whatever. Like I do it for that one message I'll get that says, I listened to this episode of your podcast and it really resonated and it really helped me. I was going through something bad, and to hear someone who is doing amazing things, has gone through similar things, it's really helped me and motivated me to, you know, better myself, or it's motivated me to start that project that I've always wanted to do, or that one message I'll get on Instagram. It's like, oh, I woke up in like this state of mind today and I saw your video on my feed and it really helped me. Thank you. Like that's what I do it for. That it's not, I don't do it for the numbers, the likes.
Exactly.
I do it for the actual like impact that, and it might just be one person out of thousands or whatever that may see it. It might just be one person. That's all it takes for me to go, this is the way I do it. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's so powerful.
It is so powerful, man. And it's really, and when it does happen, it's like, that's why I started this. It isn't about the numbers and things like that. Those things are nice because it's, I mean, that's for your ego, really. It's
exactly.
Like, we're doing a good job. But when you get those messages, it's like, wow, this is actually making a real life difference.
And that's the thing. It's like everyone would like to say, oh, I've got 100 million downloads on my podcast. It's like, everyone would like that. But unless you're having that impact, then it doesn't really mean anything. Do you know what I mean?
It's all about impact. And it's about remembering why you started something. Remembering your why. And I think you raised a really good point there as well. You said you started the year saying, I want to end the year big, 250k downloads, but you gave yourself the freedom to change your goal and change your mind. And I think that's really powerful because people, myself included, especially in the past, it would be like, you make your mind up before doing something. And then across the journey, you're like, nope, whatever happens, I need to get to that goal. But what you forget is along the journey, you pick up new knowledge. Yeah. And that changes the landscape and that changes the game. So you do need to be nimble and give yourself that freedom to change your mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I think that was really powerful because you realize that there was more value in consistency than an arbitrary number.
I put more energy into other things. I put more energy into putting more video content out on my own personal Instagram. I put more energy into turning the videos around for the podcast. I put more energy into building up other areas like a newsletter, like live shows. That was one of the other goals, was like, I want to do 4 live shows. And I've done 1 and I've got a second one in September. So that's cool. And I might get a third one out in December, which is cool. Yeah. But, you know, I'm not going to kill myself because I didn't get the 250,000 total because that's going to come at some point.
Of course.
It's inevitable. Yeah. So it's not the time frame that worries me. It was more the mindset of having that motivation to try and do it and seeing that I've done all the other stuff around it, which I thought would help elevate to get to that point. But actually I realized the fact that I'm putting more energy into the videos, into my videos, podcast videos, live shows, you know, extra mini episodes and whatever, I'm actually giving even more value. So it's not about the numbers. It's about the more value that I'm giving.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And the image that just gave me just now, what you were saying, is almost like the 250k goal, the big big vision, four shows and that is almost like we're getting in the car, we're driving, we're going somewhere, we're gonna drive to Edinburgh, and you start driving and you're like, oh no, let's stop at Liverpool, let's stop at, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just about having that ignition and getting going, because that is where the value is.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant, man.
That's a good way of putting it, actually. I like that.
That's brilliant.
Because Edinburgh's far.
Exactly. I've never been, but yeah, I've heard it's a long drive. Man, that's really cool. Just want to shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about social media and One Extra. How did you get into that? That's quite a big responsibility, because
it's massive.
One Extra. Well, firstly, BBC are there's a lot of red tape in how they communicate. If you go on Twitter, any DJ that's on BBC in their bio will say, "My views are my own,
staff
not the BBC's," and staff as well. Yeah. But if you're the social media manager of One Extra, then your views are the BBC's. So, what was that like? How did you understand what the criteria was and communicate that?
I guess like I said, my background was in marketing and advertising before I got the One Extra job. So I kind of had a really good understanding of working with big companies, working within a big company in an advertising agency, and the kind of, how you can't be reckless, you can't be, whatever. But I was also blogging as well. So I had all of the insight and all of the understanding of the scene that One Extra represents. So it was just a case of putting the two batches of experience together and just, cool, all right, One Extra is BBC, but like I said, it's on the far edge of the BBC where, you've got, people coming on and doing freestyles about certain things, or, even the music that's played is like, it's representative of a part of culture. So the brand itself is only going to be a representative of that part of culture. So you can only do that within the BBC limits, obviously, but you can still do some great stuff. And that was the approach. It was like, first of all, how do we make everything look and feel like it's One Extra content? Second of all, how do we put more of our content out? And third of all, how do we engage our audience more? And that's been the job. Well, particularly for the first year and a half. Then obviously on top of that, things have changed and we've had different, not that we've sat down and gone, we need a different approach. It's me going, okay, cool, I'm going to try and focus on this thing, or building up Instagram, or getting more video on Instagram, or, back when I started, it was like, we need to start a Snapchat account. Or, at the minute, it's like, let's put more focus into Instagram stories.
Right.
Let's try IGTV. Let's tone down maybe the amount we put into Twitter and Facebook, unless we know it's a really big thing, we know it's going to pop. Let's go to where the audience is, which is Instagram. So it's like, things do change. So it's like having that understanding of it. And I'm fortunate that I'm not audience in terms of like the target age for One Extra anymore, but I'm the audience in the sense that I'm consistently on my phone, consistently taking in content, consistently making content, So I have a very good understanding of how that world works, and I can see the patterns and the trends.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm someone who tends to be an early adopter on. Like, I was on Instagram. I mean, my first picture was like God knows how many years ago. I wouldn't even want to scroll back to my first picture. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was on Twitter from like 2009 or whatever. Same, So I've always been on like these platforms early enough to get an understanding of them. And even Snapchat, like when we launched a One Extra Snapchat account, like I had to fight for that because there was no Snapchat accounts in the BBC, or certainly in BBC Radio. I don't know if it's like the whole BBC. I'd like to think so, because then I'd like to say that I launched the first Snapchat account of the BBC.
For the sake of the podcast.
For the sake of the podcast, yeah. But even like that, or even understanding that when I started, Radio 1 and One Extra had a joint Instagram account.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing I said was like, why have we got a joint Instagram account? Because one person's going there to see an interview Grimmy's done with, One Direction, and the next person's going there to see a Fire in the Booth clip. I'm like, the two doesn't marry up. It's two different worlds. It's like, we need to separate that out. So I launched One Extra's own Instagram account from zero. From literally,
wow.
I literally sat there and started the account on my own phone, like 0 followers, 0 following. I had to write the bio. I had to do all of that.
Nuts.
And post the first picture and grow that account.
Wow. And
been doing that for like, that counts my real baby.
Yeah,
That's the one that I'm like, I'm going to be gutted to like not be able to have the input anymore. But it is what it is, man. We've done some amazing stuff. So
yeah. What's the following like on there now?
It's just shy of 250,000, I think. Jeez. So it's not grown massively. Like I would have liked to have been a lot more, to be honest, and I think it could have. But again, I've had to work within certain, not restrictions of the BBC, but you know, there's certain types of content that you know are going to get you more awareness, more followers. But as a brand, as One Extra, we don't want to make that type of content. We want to make content that's reflective of our brand. So, but it's also time and it's also energy, and it's like I've still got, you know, well, Instagram's almost like 2 accounts within one, because you've got stories and you've got the feed.
That's right.
And so with that, there's also, I've got to manage the Twitter, I've got to manage the Facebook, I've got to do meetings, I've got to do strategy, How
big was the team? Was it
me?
No, really?
Yeah, me. So there's like the setup is I do One Extra. There's another girl who does Radio 1, and that's how it was for the first like 2.5 years. We were just the ones who did it. We've got a visualization team who film everything. They film like all the live lounges and do the YouTube edits, but we have to make the cut down versions for Instagram or whatever platform. Then in the last like year and a half, they've introduced what they call content APs, who help us take the content and put it on social. So if there's an interview with like Yasmin and Big Tobes, their role is to go in the studio, set up the cameras, film it, come out of there, take note of what the best bit is, cut the video, because we subtitle everything now as well.
That's right, yeah.
Like make it square, subtitle it, that goes to me, and then I post.
Right.
So
makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I've lost that whole process of making the clips, which was very time consuming.
Very.
But that's only been a recent thing. So the team is still me in terms of like the strategy and everything. Like both of us who do Radio 1 Extra, we've got a boss, and they've got a boss, and they've got a boss. But day to day, you know, really sitting down and coming up with stuff, like it's down to me. Like when it comes to One Extra Live, it's like, cool, how we covering it on the night, what we doing, how we going to do the online lineup announcement, how we going to do make sure that people are aware tickets are like all of that stuff is down to me. Yeah. Like
obviously the impression that you get is that it's a massive team, because obviously the interaction with One Extra or radio in general is predominantly through social media now, unless you're actually catching a radio if you're in a car, for example. That's crazy, because also like on what the key differentiator for BBC content online is that it is your own content. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not jumping on different memes and stuff like that,
exactly.
which is easy to do. It's like creating your own social media.
You've got to make your own content out of what it is that we're getting from the radio, or making specific content for Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So like I said, we can't do an I'm just bait and take like a funny video that we've seen on another account, chuck it on ours, add a funny caption, chuck in a couple of banter hashtags, and we know it's going to fly because we've already seen it popping on that account. We can't do that. We have to use our own content and try and make it pop in its own way, and get famous for our content and not other content.
That's a big challenge, but
yeah, it is. But
was it a round the clock job, or
kind of? But I'm very strict, because like I could be on job 24/7. So I'm like, I work. These are my hours. Like that's the hours I'm in work. If it's super urgent, you can get me outside those hours. Otherwise, I'm picking up my emails in the morning, and when I leave at night, you're not contacting me until I get back in.
Yeah, you have to have that discipline. Otherwise, it can just rule your mental health.
Exactly. And especially on social, like, and there are like other people who chip in with like postings, like the teams from the evening shows, they have license to post about their shows, because obviously I'm not around, but I have to like feed into them what it is they do. I have to manage the content in terms of like how the images for the show look. I have to, you know, commission all of that work to the agency we work with, who make all of our social assets. It's like, you know, picking up quite a lot of heavy work from, you know, a lot of different places.
That's mad.
Yeah.
And all of this is transferable to your next chapter. Of
course.
You said you're freelancing, obviously. Yeah. You're going to add value to anybody that needs those particular skills, but also for your platform. Yeah. I'd imagine, because like I said, the impression is that you're from a massive team at the BBC. It's funny because you think big brands, you think big teams and stuff, but yeah, it's not obviously not the case all the time. I think that's going to be amazing for you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
going forward, because you should have like a level of confidence knowing that
definitely.
you can do it on your own.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I know for a fact I can go into any company or any business or whatever and take up a consultancy role on how they should be doing social, or how they could be doing it better, or how they can make better content. Or I can be quite hands-on and help out on a project over a course of 2 months, 3 months, whatever. So it's like being able to, because I've done all of that. I've done the editing, I've done the taking photos, I've done, the filming, I've done, the posting, the writing, the captions, the hashtags. But I've also done the strategy, the big top line stuff, the planning around the events,
of course, and how it all ties in together.
Launching accounts, coming up with the type of content we should be coming up with the look and the feel, coming up with the tone, coming up with, I've done all of that stuff as well. So I can apply all of that in any way I choose, really. So the way I'm looking at it is that I'm now able to design my own work. Do you know what I mean? So I can go to, let's say a sports brand. I could go to a sports brand and say, cool. And the good thing is about what I do at One Extra is it's all specific for a youth audience.
Right.
And every brand in any part of any industry that I'm interested in want a youth audience. So I've got that skill and that knowledge and that experience.
You can communicate to a youth audience.
Yeah. So if they want to come and get it, they can come and get it, but they're going to have to pay me for it.
100%. And they should. Yeah. They should. How can they contact you for that?
Just via my email, like alex@thedreamersdisease.co.uk.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that write that down if you need help with your social media strategy, for sure. I want to pick up on something you said, and that was when you had your interviews, when you do your interviews, it was something that came quite naturally. I feel the same for me, but I want to understand, at what point in your life did you feel that I'm good at having these conversations. I'm good at having people at ease so they can open up and stuff. Was it always the case, or
no? Like, it's quite interesting you asked that, actually, because for me, I've kind of, like I said, like when I grew up, I grew up around a group of girls or a group of friends that, being girls, they're a bit more open, so you're kind of part of those conversations, and naturally you become quite a good listener. Yeah. Right. And I was also the kid when I was younger that people would come to for advice on, like, oh, there's this guy that I really like, or there's this girl that I really like. Because, I can see things quite objectively, but I can also I like to see things from both sides of an argument. So if you come to me and say, oh, there's this girl and da-da-da-da, whatever, and I'll say, yeah, but what if she meant this, or what if she did that instead? Then it's trying to see it from what was actually her point of view, what was her reason behind that action or by what she said. So I've always had that kind of understanding, but I've never really been one to dive in and divulge into deep conversations. Like, I won't be, more so now, but I wouldn't be out like with my mates and we just having like a really deep, heart to heart or whatever. So this kind of, that part of me kind of got almost neglected, I guess. So this was my way to bring it back out. Not that I knew it at the time, but looking back now, this is my way to bring it back out. So for me, it's a part of my journey as well, but it's also like a skill that I've kind of unknowingly nurtured and grown over the years through, having to, even just at work, having to be a producer, you have to listen to a lot of people's issues and then try to deal with them and then try to see things objectively and try to get the best outcome. So like when you're having an interview, you're naturally able to, like for me, I find it really easy to listen to people, but not just reply for the sake of replying, reply understanding the point that they're talking about and trying to then understand it more and delve deeper and trying to help them to see what they might have meant by what they said.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? And that's where I think the real, skill comes from. I don't know, like, I wouldn't say it's something I've really practiced or worked on. It's just something that has happened over time. And obviously the more interviews I do, the better I get it and the more relaxed I feel about it and the more natural the conversations feel. And like now, like you're here, you don't have any questions written down. Like I used to always have stuff written on my phone and like key questions. Yeah. But now I'm doing the interviews and I'll still have key questions written down because I like to prepare up front, but I won't be looking at my phone anymore. I'll just go with the conversation and let it flow a lot more naturally. So yeah, I guess it's just a time thing, really.
Definitely. And do you think that, I mean, because you said that you had a time where you were surrounded by girls. What age was that?
Probably like I'm going to hazard a guess, to be fair. But I mean, we were pretty close for a long time, still are, but we don't see each other as much. But I'll probably say like from 10 to like 15, 16, 17. But that's with the group of girls I said with my sister, but also like in the group of friends I had in my area, there was also a lot of girls. So again, I was always more comfortable just sitting and chatting with the girls, maybe because I had, you know, that with my sister and our family friends and stuff. So yeah, a long time probably.
I relate. I mean, I've got older brother and loads of like guy friends as well. But my ratio in life has always been like 3 to 1.
Yeah.
In terms of women and stuff. And do you think that period, especially where you're learning how to communicate and how to be in social situations and stuff, because obviously women are more naturally empathetic and open up more and things like that. Do you think that was like the influence of that period of your life where you kind of learnt more empathy?
Probably because, and also I should say that I went to an all-boys school, so it's not like it was in school time. This was outside of school. Like,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, our group of friends was like 4 or 5 boys and then like 5, 6 girls.
Yeah.
And we'd go and do stuff on the weekends. We'd go to like chill at someone's house, or we'd go to the park, you know, usual kind of stuff. So, but I was always more, you know, I'd have jokes with everyone, but I just felt it was a lot easier to chat to the girls. And it was the same with my sister and our friends. Like, it was a lot easier to just hang. We used to do stupid stuff. Like, we used to film like comedy sketches and just do like dumb.
We did the same thing.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
it was like we had a very similar life.
Like dumb stuff that kids do, right? And you know, we go walk up or, you know, whatever. So it's like I've always just had that. I don't think I ever really realised it until recently, though, to be honest. But I've always had that kind of connection with like empathy through, you know, girls, or however it is you want to look at it. Because, you know, guys, it's completely different. When you get to an all-boys school, it's about football,
of course,
and music,
bravado,
and, you know,
it's competition, essentially.
Yeah, you're not having like DMCs at break time. You're playing football and trying to like beat each other up or whatever.
100%,
you know, or
which
trying to
is good as well, right?
Beaten up.
Yeah, well, not the beating up part, but the whole competition and all that. Like, that's all good.
Yeah,
but
of course.
That's very interesting that you had that clear balance. The reason I wanted to pick up on that is that, to me, that feels like the thread for you. Obviously with the podcast and stuff, but what the chapter that you're opening up is all about empathy, because that's what life coaching is seeing someone's life through their shoes, and you have to reserve judgment, jump into their situation, and really see life through their lens. So that's a very, very key element to
and like I said, I think that's something that I've always kind of done, because I've always tried to see things from both sides, you know. So my sister's boyfriend always like says that I'm not argumentative, but I'm like not being controversial. I can't think of the word, but like, you know,
like
just
devil's advocate.
Yeah, playing devil's advocate. But that's the role I like to play, because that does then get other people thinking about the other side. Because too often when we believe something or we have an opinion on something, we only consider our own experiences of it. We don't actually go, actually,
exactly,
how is the other side? What is the other potential? So I've always kind of played that role a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's just like an outcome of that. And also I think like I've like I said, neglected that part of me for such a long time, and you know, it could have been a root cause of some of the stuff I've put myself through. I don't know, but having, you know, being more open and more empathetic and more kind of honest with myself and more self-aware, I feel a lot more comfortable, because I feel like I'm not hiding anything, or I'm not creating this character, or I'm not, you know, hiding behind a shield or a mask, or, you know, it's all very, this is me, this is how I am, and, you know, I'll be here chatting with you on this level, and at the same time I can go and sit at a table with my bosses at work and still chat to them on the same level, or, meet a girl and chat to her on the same level. And
consistency.
It's a consistency thing.
Yeah,
it's
not authenticity.
And it's not like, oh, okay, well, I'm really going to try and impress you.
Exactly,
or now I've got to go and put on this other mask and try and
so
impress
exhausting.
you. It's like, it's tiring, man.
Yeah.
I just want to be me and just do me and make sure I'm the best I can be. Because
100%.
if I'm the best I can be, then I'm the best for everyone else. And then by being the best for everyone else, I can help them be the best for them. You see what I mean? So it's
100%. Why did you feel that you neglected that part of you?
Don't know, man. I just feel like it's just how life went. I was very unhappy in work and where my life was going, and just going through a really bad period in my life. I was like suffering from like really bad anxiety and, I guess bouts of depression, and this was all going on without me even realizing it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had a real breakdown that I actually realized what was happening. Do you know what I mean? Or it was the acceptance of it that made me realize what was happening. And that's what set me off on this journey, which was like probably 5 years ago, set me off on this journey of like self-discovery. And for the first like year and a half, I probably didn't do anything about it, because I kind of lived in the high of getting the job at One Extra, because it happened soon after the breakdown. So I lived off the high of that, but then I soon realised that was quite a short-term fix. So then I was like, right, okay, I need to really like look at myself and ask myself some serious questions. And I used this analogy the other day in a video on my Instagram of like looking at yourself in the mirror, stripping back everything, all your possessions, all your friends, all your family, everything you've ever done, all your experiences, and almost looking at yourself, stark bollock naked in the mirror and going, who am I? What do I represent as a person? And I not physically had to do that, but I had to do that. And I had to ask myself some serious questions. And the scary thing was I couldn't answer it. I could not answer who I was or what I represented because my mind didn't know. So I had to almost strip everything back, go back to real basics in my life and start relearning about myself and what do I enjoy? Actually, I'm doing this thing because I think I enjoy it, but do I actually enjoy it?
Right.
So should I stop doing it?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And that's a really hard process. That's a really hard process.
It's a really hard process.
It's literally like you're tearing yourself apart to put yourself back together, but you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because you've put yourself together in such a bad way. It's like being a piece of Lego. You've built the thing, but it's all completely wrong. So you then have to tear it apart brick by brick to then put it together in the right way. And that's kind of the whole process I've done. And like, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Tough at times.
Of course.
And there's still days where like, I say this thing of like, I would have gone through 9 out of 10 days feeling like shit, like feeling like just low, not even wanting to smile, not even feeling like I had energy to talk to people. And now it's probably like 3 out of 10 days or 2 out of 10 days.
Yeah.
So it's like flip, but those days are still there. But it's,
of course,
when I do have those days, it's like, cool, this is just temporary. And I know this is temporary because I know that I can change my thinking. Not like I can't just go bang and change my thinking, but I know that it is my thinking that needs to change to get me back on where I need to be. And it's understanding that has become super important to me.
100%. And it's about asking the right questions, which is what you did. You had a breakdown, which made you question everything, right? And then from there, you started questioning more.
Yes.
It would have been easy for you to fall back into the same habits and put on the same masks as before, because this is what I thought I liked doing, but do I actually like doing it?
Yeah.
And it takes a level of courage to actually ask that, because it is just easy to just do the same things and please other people and all of that stuff. But yeah, going through that is what really makes you who you are.
Wild. That's what it is.
Oh man, yeah. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy because it's not only you that it affects, because obviously, how old were you when you hit that breakdown?
Would have been 5 years, probably about 25, yeah.
So that's 25 years worth of conditioning of other people, this is who Alex is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have something that changes within you, and it's like, well, no, that's not actually who I am inside. This is who I am. And it's, you start to see people change because of that around you and stuff. Like, I've been through the same thing, and...
Did you feel like you had a transition period? Like in between the realizing like this isn't who I am or want to be, to like starting the process of like finding out who you were and what you want to be.
Yeah.
So I find there was like a 3-year transition period in the middle before I even started the journey.
Absolutely.
So,
and that's just like, it's almost like walking through the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like getting to a point where you're just looking around and just saying, is this where I want to be? Getting to a point where you want it to be, standing in it and being like, oh, this is not what I expected, or do I actually enjoy this?
Yeah.
Is this the parts of me that I want to bring out? Is this the legacy I want to leave and stuff? Is this how it's supposed to feel? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you ask those questions, you start to search and experience.
Yeah.
Where you get fired up.
Yeah, exactly.
Properly, you know?
And the thing is, I think the problem is like we're kind of taught that, you know, to be happy, like you have your own car and you have your own place and you have a good job and you have like a good relationship. And it's like, at times I've had all of those things, but that didn't necessarily mean I was happy, because I wasn't. Like, what's made me happy is like fully understanding and, you know, being the best that I can and really taking the time and the effort to invest in that. That's what's made me happy. And then because of that, I've now, you know, I'm focusing that outwards into everything that I'm starting to do. The podcast, the videos, the business that I'm going to build. All of that stuff is all coming from that. And none of that would exist if I didn't look at myself in that way. And I'm not saying that's going to happen with everyone. It might not. But what you might realize is you own 2 Rolexes and you drive a BMW and you own a flat in West London, but you're not happy. And you earn 100 grand a year, but you're not happy. So all of those things that you've bought or that you've done that you think are going to make you happy haven't. So what are the things that do make you happy, and how can you do them more? And that's the whole process. Exactly.
Man, yeah, that's super powerful. Super powerful. Do you feel as well that obviously going into what you're going into, now you have the necessary, what was I going to say, like tools? Because you've gone through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel equipped, man. I feel like...
That's it, equipped.
Yeah, I feel like because I've been through it, I understand the process. And because I've kind of been through it on a very lonely journey, I feel like I can fully accept, but also resonate with other people who are going through that. Because it's tough to talk about things. Like, I haven't ever really spoken about it properly with like my family still, or some of my friends. Like, some of my friends that have, but I still haven't really done it. And it's like, it's not an easy thing to do. But if you're, what I'm trying to get everyone to understand is, if you feel like you're on this journey alone, you're not. Because what you probably don't know is the guy next to you on the tube is probably going through the exact same thing. So there's people out there who are going through this, and it's not a lonely thing. There are people going through it. It's just hard to talk about it. But I feel like if I can play a part in inspiring you to take a step, or motivating you to try something different, or whatever it is, then I'm playing my role. And if that means that you're going off to do what I did, and you know, I had to learn about myself literally by myself, then that's fine, so be it. But if part of that is you want to come to me and what I'm offering and the things that I'm doing to learn more, or to take on more inspiration, and that might just be listen to the podcast every week. I'm not getting anything out of that. I'm not getting any money out of that. But if you are, fine. But it also might be later down the line, if you want to join a program or come to a workshop or wherever it is, then cool. Like, all those avenues are open, and it's like, it's a place for people to come to. Transform's not the word, but like, I say it all the time, become the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Or start to become the best version of yourself. Like, and it's all about looking internally, man.
Hey guys, that'll be it for part 1 today. Tune back on Wednesday for part 2, and you're going to get the rest of this episode. Remember to get your tickets at thedreamersdisease.co.uk/tickets to get your tickets to the Dreamers Disease live show.